Welcome on in, everybody, to the first episode of Season 2 CrocPot Podcast. And I tell you what, we got a special episode because we basically about to tap into the origins. Like, where's Chef Zay? How did I get here? Why am I this super fan? And you know we're celebrating the 24-hour stream, so I appreciate everybody tapped in now. But I'm here with the guy who basically was like an older brother / uncle / father figure before he had his kids, because he did all of his Browns endeavors with me, and I'm super grateful for that. But Kevin Kinsella, welcome on into the show.
Pleasure to be here, man. Pleasure to be here.
Look it. So, I mean, I guess where do we start? I guess I was a little young boy, right? And who would have thought?
Little boy doing flips in the courtyard.
Mm-hmm.
And I have visions of when you were little and geared up in your brown stuff with the face paint on and everything else. And it started when you were little, being a Browns fan, and it's been fun to watch you grow since then.
I remember going back every game we would go to, because Uncle Scott would give us one pair of tickets every year.
Yep.
And every time we would go, you'd always say, I wonder which person's going to say something about you next. There was always somebody that would either say I was throwing good or you're going to do something. But little did they know, I wasn't going to get any taller than 4'11".
Yeah, none of us knew. But that's a true story. I remember being in a parking lot, and I remember throwing the ball around and people, oh, you got an arm, you should be on the Browns. I'm like, that's annoying. This kid gets all this attention. Everywhere we go, this kid gets attention.
As you're diming me up, right?
Yeah, right. It was my passes. It wasn't your catches. I mean, it's always been that way.
I'll never forget when we finally went and you were like, man, my shoulder just ain't like it used to be. And sure enough, I'm like, man, you're throwing ducks out here. That was, I think it was the Port was the last time that we went. Yeah. But I loved how, one of my favorite things is all the stories that you would have. Before we get to the game, it only took 25 minutes to get there, but you would think it took an hour because of how many stories and all the giggles and laughs, from your mom getting hit in the stomach with a baseball to, matter of fact, I should have introduced him as Kevin Johnson, 8'5", from Lou Groza Boulevard. Tell me about the story of this, people mistaking your name. Are you using Kevin to your advantage?
Well, I mean, I would do it. I mean, are you talking about when I would go for like raffles and stuff like that?
So I just remember being at, like, whenever we would go autographs, and you would say I would use the name Kevin Johnson, maybe for raffles, and you would plug it as if you were Kevin Johnson, the receiver on the Browns.
Well, I did do it for raffles. Definitely did it for raffles, and usually it was like a giveaway or something at stadiums, and it was always Kevin Johnson. But I didn't really plug it as being Kevin Johnson from the Browns. I plugged it as Kevin Johnson from the Solon garbage dump. My sister and I just talked about this. Yeah, and I have a blanket at home that I got from being Kevin Johnson at the Solon garbage dump.
Oh my God, that is freaking hilarious. I always remember that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what else did we have that was.
We had a lot of good things. We had, the time that we were driving right next to Gerard Big Penny Warren.
And you said it wasn't.
I know I did.
We're riding on the freeway right out of the game, and this was, matter of fact, that's what I'm going to get right now. Stay tuned. Because since you brought that game up, this was the game right here. And that's exactly what I was forgetting before I started this. Because the game that we actually saw Gerard Warren on the freeway, I believe if it wasn't this game, this was the game where we stood outside and
yes, it was.
Got a bunch of autographs. You suggested after a comeback victory win versus the Jets, it's like, let's go out to where the players come out and stand there. And we stood there in the rain, and player after player after player after player came out. And then we get on the freeway, and I'm like, I think that's Gerard Warren. You're like, that's not Gerard Warren.
Yeah.
Windows down, arm out. I'm like, good game, Gerard. And he chucks up the dudes, and you're like,
yes, he did.
You were right.
Yes, he did. I'm usually wrong. My kids tell me the same thing all the time, but this was a good a good time. I remember that, and you got so many autographs.
That's probably my favorite keepsake, I would say, out of all of the things that we've got a lot, because I've got we've got the Browns helmet. We went down and saw Paul Warfield and Braylon Edwards that time, right when he was a rookie. That was the first time I ever was at the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting in the parking lot, and you're like, dude, don't touch those batteries. They got acid on it. I'm sitting there playing with a battery we found on the ground. I don't know why that stuck out to me, but just a lot of good times on that break. And then this one, Ruben Jerome's first 1,000-yard rusher since '99, and we sat next to the punters.
We did.
The long snapper punters' parents.
We did. I remember that, talking to them. And they were really nice.
I mean, we went to a lot of good games. I think we've been ever since '99, right? Our first game was the Titans, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, it was.
What would you say would be your favorite game that we've been to? Because we've been to so many. I can think of a couple.
As crazy as it sounds, I think it would be the San Francisco game when Manziel got the win.
I knew you were going to say that for some reason.
Manziel got the win.
And that, fun fact for the people who don't know, that was the last win we got before we went on the dreaded 1-31.
Yeah.
Do you know that? So we went to...
Didn't really think of that until just now.
We went to this Bengals game with Manziel. His first start. Was that me and you?
The Bengals? No. We were at the Niners.
Who did I go with that game? That's weird then. So
it could have been, man. I'm telling you. I don't remember hardly anything.
I don't know. I know I went to the first starting game against the Bengals, and that was a disaster. He threw like 4 picks that game or something crazy. And then we went back that game to the San Francisco 49ers game, and we sat under that. It was raining that game,
It was.
And I believe that touchdown in that corner of the end zone, that's where we were sitting at.
So excited for Johnny Manziel.
Oh my God, how wrong were we on him?
I know. But you know what? I still love Johnny football. I still love Johnny football.
He's really came around, hasn't he?
He has.
And you can see it when he talks. Like, at first it kind of looked like BS.
Yeah.
But he definitely has.
He's grown up, I think. I do. It's a shame, but...
Before we get into it, one more story. I think that, I guess the game that I would consider, we went to the TOBO game against Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I ever got to sit in the dog pound because I believe someone gave you tickets.
I forgot about the TOBO
and
game.
we sat all the way up at the top in the dog pound on the bleachers.
Yep.
And sure enough, right in front of us, T.O. rips down the sign.
Yep.
That was crazy.
That was awesome.
We went to the Colts game where Marvin Harrison destroyed us that game, and Peyton Manning made a comeback and crushed our hearts. And
that was annoying.
I'm trying to think. I think there was one more that sticks out. Obviously, those 2 games. But we've been to so many games every year, and it's always been a blast. Same seats every time, 3-yard line.
Well, you know what? I mean, to me, I love the Browns. I've loved the Browns forever. But I like all that comes with it. Like you said, the drive to the game, throwing the ball around before, after the game, eating a little bit of food. The fans, everybody's in a good mood, except for when they lose. But even when they lose, everybody's in a bad mood together. Nobody's like angry with each other. So I think that's the biggest thing is I just the whole game day environment is what makes it so special.
So it's funny you bring that up, and we'll transition into it then. The big talk around obviously right now is the big stadium renovation. $3.4 billion, 2.14 of that is going towards the stadium. Haslam's are reported to put up a bulk of that money. When I mentioned they'll be taking like decades of tradition away, the first thing that a lot of people say is, you're talking about just getting drunk, like it's sad, It's like, okay, I get what you're saying. Majority of the tailgating is going down there and partying.
It is.
But like you said, it's the fan interaction, it's the memories with with not just your parents, but the grandparents and their parents, and throwing the football and being around people that you aren't around on a regular basis.
Yes.
And no matter what color, what race, where you're from, everyone in the Muni lot collectively as a whole is a family at that point.
It's awesome.
And it's going to be sad if they decide to take that away, which more than likely they don't really care about what we say. They're moving to Brook Park. It's pretty much
done.
This was just probably their first render that they showed us, but they've probably been set on that for a while. What do you think? Like, what are your opinions on the whole situation? Being somebody who's got to experience the Muni lot way before my time as well.
Well, to be honest, I've flipped back and forth quite a bit because I'm a traditionalist. Being 50, almost 51 years old, I had the pleasure of going to games at Municipal Stadium, and it was dark, it was dingy, it was musty, and I loved it.
Yep.
I've been to a bunch of stadiums. I've been to Heinz Field. I've been to I've been to Ralph Wilson Stadium. I've been to a lot of older stadiums where I like that nostalgia, thinking about who the players that played on that field, and I would love to see it stay right where it is and put a retractable dome on the current where it is. Keep everything as is. But with corporate America and whatnot now, and more money and more opportunities, I understand the need to try to make it year-round, and I get it, and I'm accepting it because it's going to happen. So how do you make it work for the fans as well as for the Browns? So it's all. I mean, I heard what Andrew Berry said about, you see these players as gladiators, not necessarily. It's not all
That's
about.
a great quote.
And in my opinion, I do agree with that. But as somebody who, when my son was playing football, I was the one out there without an umbrella standing in the rain because I loved it and I felt it. Smell of the mud and the grass and everything. That's how I am. Not everybody's like that. A lot of people don't want to get wet and cold. I'm pumped for it. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've told people this is football weather. And some people get pissed off when you say it. It's too cold.
But you know what that is? It's the way that the generation is moving towards. The older generation it's almost faded out. Like, all of these players, it's a different day and age because you see how much money all of these players are making. When it's like, what do they really have to go out here and do? Now, they're handing you $50 million life-changing money for the rest of your life. It's not that same. I don't think the players care about that anymore. And it's sad because you had guys like Ray Lewis, like Ed Reed, Troy Polamalu. Obviously, it's hard to find a guy that you can name in the Browns aspect, but Joe Thomas, guys that were, there was one way to play football, and that's muddy and gritty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it seems as if they are moving from that to completely go to the entertainment route.
Yes.
And I just think it's unfortunate. And I think the biggest thing that they really need to consider is, moving from downtown Cleveland into Brook is going to be one of those things that is going to be a new feel because they say no drinking in the Muni, but people are down there drinking. And I think the tailgating aspect, whether it's you have a drink or not, you need to allow the fans to be able to still carry that tradition. Because if there's anything that the Cleveland Browns organization has done right, the fans know how to put on a tailgate and know how to come out and support. I think if you alter that or change that in any way and not allow them to go to the lengths that they've gone for, multiple decades, man, that's a huge drop in the ball, no matter how nice it is, in my opinion.
Totally agreed. And I'm also worried about what it's going to do to downtown Cleveland and all those businesses and whatnot. I mean, think about it. They're talking about if they move on, you can have concerts there. You can have, possibly tournaments and whatnot. Some of that stuff takes place at Rocket Field Mortgage House. So now what's going to happen? I mean, you're going to take that away, and then all those bars and restaurants, they're going to take a huge hit.
I'm wondering what the plan is where the stadium's going to be. Do you leave it there? Do you leave it blank and it's just kind of like blah? Or do you put something on top of it? It should be, if they do move it, that should be the focal point. And you mentioned the retractable roof. The Browns, after they released the renders, they had a 5-page, rundown of everything. And they've exalted every option as far as the renovation downtown. And there's just codes and regulations and stuff that you're just not allowed to do. And the retractable roof is one of those things that it can't happen in that stadium.
True.
So it's going to be interesting to see how they convert this lakefront. Obviously, we've seen a couple images of it, and it will be weird without it. I've seen a couple people suggest, well, you can still tailgate at the Muni lot. You take the train directly to the stadium. And I'm like,
Nobody's doing all that, though.
It's not a bad idea, but no one's doing that.
It's not a bad idea, but it's not happening.
No one's doing that.
People want to be right there because, truth be told, at the Muni lot, you can still hear. If that place is going crazy, you can hear it. So you still feel like you're part of it. Not everybody can afford a ticket. And if they make this move, even less people are going to be able to afford it. But unfortunately, in my opinion, the fans are an afterthought in this. The Browns, when you look at the ticket prices in the NFL, concessions and all that, we're not at the top.
No.
We're not. So they got some wiggle room. And we're appreciative of that. But that's about to go away because they're going to make it they're gonna price themselves out of a lot of fans.
It's sad to see because I see a couple comments, and we'll move on from this after that. But someone said that once their tickets were $800 or $300, they're now $3,000. You can only imagine what it's gonna be. I can't imagine what it's gonna be, and to think that, you know, it's gonna open up a lot of opportunities. And selfishly, as Browns fans, that's the only thing we want to think about. You know, you mentioned how it will affect the economy downtown. Someone used the example that it seems like it could still thrive because a lot of people were downtown when that big national car convention were here, and they're making a case that other events that will surround it and that will still be in downtown will find a way to thrive. But we've seen it with the LeBron effect. Yeah. I mean, the second he left, it was $46 million gone. Yeah. The second the Browns leave, you're losing 8 weeks, 9 weeks of revenue that you ultimately can't replace.
Yeah.
But it seems like it may. I don't know, man. I just hope they get it right. I think they need to do right by the fans. That's my number one priority. Do right by the fans.
You are right, because we have been, if nothing else, we have been stick with that team through and through, wins and losses every year. We're at the game. We're excited for the next year. You know, we don't turn our backs on the team, and that should be rewarded with, like you said, have a fan panel or something to just say what do we need to do here, because I've told my son, I feel like this is Haslam wants to be Jerry Jones.
Mm-hmm.
He is not Jerry Jones. This is not Dallas. So work with the fans a little bit and take their input, because I think we're being just, you know, Justin Bibb came out with his, you know, we're going to give them this amount of money. So now, look, the city's doing right they're doing what they should do. It's all smoke and mirrors. They already know what they're going to do.
And you know, it was a great gesture by the mayor coming out, or whoever came out with that proposal. It was like, oh, here's $461 million, and then Haslam's are like, here, hold my beer.
Yeah.
We're putting up $1.2 billion. This is what it's like.
Yeah.
Thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah, and I think they both already knew. So it was let's throw this out to the media, get it out there. Look, we did our part. Well, that ain't gonna happen. So we went through this back in the day with Mike White and the Browns. I mean, this is not new. This is not new.
It's definitely not new, but something that is new, and we're gonna have to take it back to talk about the new. We had a documentary from when I was in school. You were kind enough to do that then, and at the time we thought Freddie Kitchens was it.
Oh yeah.
We thought he was the guy. We were coming off this good season. The talent Baker looked like he was it. We thought he was our future. We were hell bent on that. We thought Dorsey was going to be around for decades.
Oh yeah.
And then in a matter of like 3-4 weeks, we realized that was not the case.
Yes.
And now, fast forward, we have a 2-time Coach of the Year.
Yes.
We have Andrew Berry, who's been here not only just through this success, but he was here through the mud, which was the 1 in 31 years. And this team has more stability than it has ever had. What do you think of the job of Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski and how they have come along? Because Kevin Stefanski, halfway through the season, I was fired Kevin Stefanski.
We all were.
I was on that train, and you couldn't convince me. And to see him grow, to see the players gravitate to him, and especially a guy like David Njoku, who they butted heads, and they've been on record as butting heads, go above and beyond to praise Kevin Stefanski. It speaks a lot to the culture that they've set and how far they come. I'm interested to know where you think they are as an organization.
I think they're in excellent shape right now. Back when Freddie Kitchens was there, you know, we were pumped. I think, if I'm not mistaken, in 2018 when he took over, he went 5-3. So we're like, okay, this is the guy. He was innovative with his play calling. Baker was doing his thing. Went into the next year, fell off, ended up going 6-10. They bring in Stefanski. Did a great job his first year. But then we get a little bit spoiled because we're like, okay, we're in the playoffs now. Okay, you shouldn't be calling the plays, this and that. What I like is this. First of all, in Barry we trust. Like, yes. I trust Andrew Barry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so whatever he does, I've yet to see him make a move. The Deshaun move, I'm still out on Watson. We'll see. But I trust him. Stefanski's done a great job. The players seem to like him and are willing to fight for him. And I mean, the dude's been in the playoffs twice. He's had 2 seasons. One was almost a 500 season. The other one he kind of fell off a little bit, but I think we're in a good spot. And I think some of that comes from Jimmy Haslam's time as a minority owner with the Steelers. Stability is huge, and to finally give these guys a chance to really roll with it and let them do their thing. Hopefully, he's our coach for a long time, and we're successful.
You know, Andrew Berry, I think this was at the beginning, right before the season started, and he talked about how they have a plan and set. It's like a 5-10 year plan. And when you hear a GM say they have like a 10-year plan, you kind of look at them crazy.
Yeah.
But I'm almost wondering, as I'm just sitting here, and this is a thought that I just thought of, I'm almost wondering if they're like year 7 into this plan. And what I mean by that is, this didn't start with Andrew Berry. It didn't start with John Dorsey. You have to go all the way back to Sashi Brown. And I think he's the biggest piece to this whole operation of why we have the players that we have, why Jimmy Haslam is operating the way that he's operating. Because when he first took over, you bought the team for, what was it, $1 or $2 billion? I think it was 2. Either way, you spent billions of dollars on a team. You're going to want to protect your investment. Those first few years was all about protecting the investment. Every GM that has came in here has said, "Oh, we're going to rebuild this roster. We're going to cut everybody off and we're going to start fresh." And they never really done that. It was always plugging a player here, bringing a veteran guy here to keep the locker room together. And Sashi Brown was like, "See you, Joe Hayden. See you, this guy." Guys that have been on this team for a while made tough decisions and cut them. Yeah. Tore it down. Then you go to John Dorsey. He got AKA the real football players in here. Set the foundation. Nick Chubb, Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, Baker Mayfield at the time, David Njoku. All of these guys. Well, I think David Njoku was actually Barry's guy, but Barry was here a little bit of that process. If that didn't happen, you wouldn't have the money. You wouldn't have your cornerstone pieces. To see him stack upon all of that, it is truly beautiful because the main story is Andrew Berry can't draft. Really? Because, I mean, it's not like he's drafted in the first round.
No.
He's drafted 3rd and 4th round and has found gems every year he's been there.
I agree.
Martin Emerson, later pick.
Yes.
Alex Wright, who is, I think he's going to have a breakout year this year. Showed flashes last year in the Jim Schwartz defense. Who's a couple other guys? Greg Newsome was his first round pick. His first round. Jedrick Wills, obviously the jury's still out on him, which pretty much everyone's already, said he's guilty. But JOK, another steal in the 2nd round. He's got pieces that you can look at and be like, we're not here without him. We're not 11-6 without Andrew Berry. Because what do all the great organizations do? The New England Patriots of the world, the Philadelphia Eagles of the world, they stack their talent. And when an injury happens, you got a guy that's like, who the heck is this Cameron Mitchell? Who the heck is this D'Anthony Bell? Who the heck is this Ronnie Hickman? An undrafted guy.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean? Who is having an impact, and that is a testament to Andrew Berry.
Yes, I completely agree. I don't buy the whole drafting. He can't draft players thing at all. I mean, we'll see how this season goes, but I think Michael Hall is gonna be a huge asset to the team. Zach Zinter, the guard we got from unfortunately Michigan.
Yep.
I think he's a dog. So I think he doesn't need that 1st round pick. Now we'll actually get a 1st round pick now. So God only knows what he'll be able to do with that. But you're right. What with the positions we've had in the drafts, I think he's done a pretty decent job. I really do. Martin Emerson's one of the best defensive backs, I think, in the NFL.
I mean, he definitely doesn't get the recognition he deserves, and I think that will happen this year. Yeah. I think that Greg Newsome is a big piece in this because while I love Cameron Mitchell, I think he's made some big plays. That Chicago game last year where he made that tackle on 3rd or 4th down to give us that opportunity to win that game, it doesn't go unnoticed, but this secondary isn't elite without Greg Newsome, and I will stand by that because you moved him from the outside into the nickel. He learned that position. He plays it well. Yeah. He is a energy jolt that you need. Even when you're down 14, he's still celebrating. You need that. Yep. And I think you're not an elite guy or an elite secondary without him. But you did mention Deshaun Watson and your confidence level and how we will be jumping back into the 1st round next year. I've been on record saying that if Deshaun Watson does not figure this out this year, this is the biggest year this organization has ever had. I think you can argue ever, but by far since '99. If they don't get this right, all of those cornerstone pieces that I talked about, Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, the Nick Chubb, which is already coming up next year,
they're moving.
David Njoku, it's going to be time to talk like,
Yeah.
okay, we may want to go somewhere else
Yeah.
and try to win if we don't
100%.
get it right.
100%.
And I don't think Andrew Berry is going to be hesitant to spend that first-round pick on a quarterback if Deshaun Watson doesn't come out and play.
Agreed.
What is your confidence level in Deshaun Watson, and do you ultimately think he can lead us to a Super Bowl?
So I'm tread carefully here. I have no confidence in Deshaun Watson, and the only reason I say that is because his ability to stay on the field. I
Okay.
think he's shown flashes that he can be the old Deshaun Watson. I mean, when you look at the numbers that he put up when he was at Houston, he was an MVP candidate.
He was top 3.
He was amazing. I mean, he's putting up 4,800 yards passing. You know, his touchdown interception ratio was off the charts. But with Cleveland, he's played 2 seasons with 6 games each time, and his numbers aren't there. They're just not there. We need a guy who's going to be on the field and is going to succeed. First, be on the field and then succeed. So I completely agree. This is a huge season for him. I hope he lights it up and he shows. I keep hearing he looks really good. But they weren't, they brought in Jameis Winston for a reason. I'm not saying he's Patrick Mahomes, but they brought in Jameis Winston for a reason. They brought in Richard Huntley for a reason. Because there's a good chance you're not going to see Deshaun Watson for the whole season, in my opinion.
So it's funny because everyone has amnesia when it comes to the Houston Texans, and they just think he was just good. No,
was great.
It was Mahomes, Rodgers, and him.
Yes.
You were talking about those 3 guys being the best quarterback in the league. And, when you talk about I think that is the fairest argument, which is if he's healthy and on the field, that's the biggest concern, right?
Yes.
But I look at everyone said, well, what have you done for me lately? What has he done in Cleveland? Everyone just discredits, I think, everything that he has done. And it's not $230 million worth. I think we can all agree in that sense. But since we're talking what he's done recent, 4-1 in his time. The last time we see him, Ravens played 14-14 in the second half. We know that. The Titans game, arguably one of his better games. The Cardinals games had some of the best balls we've seen him throw. Pause.
Yep.
But but what I mean is the last stretch that we saw him play, he wasn't terrible by any stretch. So I think, this year watching him, you could tell I'm a people person guy. I can observe. That's what I do. You could tell there was something off the first couple years. There was the aura. He clearly was distracted from the outside noise, and that was the biggest thing that I harped on. It's like, bro, you gotta cut that out.
Yeah.
And he came out this year and said he's done with it, and it actually had the media in a crazy shitstorm because they were like the language that he used with it and everything, and he probably could have used his words a little bit better when he was talking about it. But it seems as if he truly has a swagger back. There's an aura around him, and my big thing is, it's like everybody in the locker room thinks he's elite, special guy. You got a guy like Wyatt Teller. When a guy like Wyatt Teller comes out and says this guy is special, that's not just David Njoku saying it or Amari Cooper saying it or guys who are getting the ball from him on a consistent basis. This is a guy that never says anything like that,
right,
and is telling you this guy is special. And that is the consensus around the whole NFL or the whole locker room and throughout the NFL.
You're right.
So why should I listen to Little Timmy on the keyboard and on the internet and all of these media analysts that he doesn't have it when guys that spend majority of their lives around this guy say that he has it?
I completely agree. We see him on Sundays, right? I mean, that's all we see. We see him on Sundays. He either succeeds or he fails or he's kind of in the middle. And because of the drama that came with him coming to Cleveland, because of outside noise and because of the amount of money, we expect a whole lot out of him. This year is huge.
Mm-hmm.
And, going back to what I was saying earlier about his numbers too, what I worry about is when he was in Houston and he was so successful, a huge part of that game of his was his running game.
Yeah.
I mean, he was scoring touchdowns. He ran the ball a lot. Now I'm afraid to have him run. So it's like, well, that takes away a huge part of his game. Have they told him, look, we need you to get down on the ground?
He mentioned it, and he's actually came out and said he's never changing his game.
I'm glad to
through
hear
his
that.
mouth. And I think, everything that they've done, they've built this around Deshaun Watson. Ken Dorsey was for Deshaun Watson. I think Ken Dorsey was his voice. And what I mean by his voice is if Deshaun Watson wants something, I think Ken Dorsey is going to be the one to rely that to Kevin Stefanski, and the reason why Kevin Stefanski is ultimately going to hold the plays, that's what he was here for. But I think Dorsey is going to be the one that's going to take the bullets, that's going to be the blame game on why certain situations was. Whatever Deshaun Watson wants, it's going to come through Dorsey.
Yeah.
Because if you're not allowing him to call plays, which is what he's done, he said this is the first time he's ever come to a place where he has to kind of take a lesser role to the guy calling the plays, which is fine. Yeah. He agreed to that. He has to have some kind of major role in that sense, and I think that could be it.
Well, you're right, because why would you come here if you can't call the plays? I mean, what? So there has to be an agreement, like you said, and that's one thing about Kevin that makes me nervous is when the plays aren't called,
how he wants it.
Like you got to take all the blame then. You can't put it on anybody else. Do you really want that?
It's so weird sitting in this seat saying, I think I trust Kevin. I think after what I seen last year, with the team going 11-6, going through 4 or 5 different quarterbacks, 10 plus guys on IR, like I mentioned, the players gravitating to him, the culture being set, he has renewed new faith in me in a sense that I think he's not going to be taken light. He's not going to be surprised by anything. I don't think there's a situation that he can't handle, and I truly believe his ego has grown from the time he got here to now, and I'm all in, man. I think Kevin, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt this year. Me too. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
Me too. I hope he's here for many years to come.
It would be nice to have a Tomlin or a Harbaugh or a Belichick or something like that.
Well, that's like, look at Pittsburgh. I mean, every year their fans are clamoring for him to be fired. Tomlin, like the Steelers or not, they find a way to get to where they need to be almost every year. It's annoying.
It's stupid, and they sweep us every year. Well, they didn't sweep us
last year. That's
not
happening this year, though.
The Ravens swept us last year. Or no, we didn't get swept by anybody last year.
No, we didn't get swept by anybody last year in the division.
Yeah,
you're right.
Wow, wow.
But they did for a long time.
And they always have our number, and it's like, oh, they're supposed to be 6-10. No, they're 9-8 in the playoffs.
Yeah,
like, what are we talking about here?
Right.
But training camp's around, and that was another prop that I forgot to get. We'll have to go right back to memory lane real quick. How is training camp different from when we were there to now? And after you explain it, I'll get into my story, because I think you're gonna remember where we go with this. But how is it different from today, or back when we went to now?
Well, I'll go even further back than that. When I started going in the 80s, with when Bernie Kosar, Clay Matthews, some of those what I consider to be legends in the Cleveland Browns organization were at Lakeland Community College. You go there, it wasn't very there weren't a ton of people there. You could get right up to the players. All there was a piece of rope, and every player would just walk by and sign. I mean, darn near every player would sign. Now I think the Cleveland Browns do a fantastic job of trying to incorporate a family-friendly environment. They have whether it's adopting dogs or little games and things like that. I think they do a great job. But there's so many people, I hate to say it because I used to be one of those people, that are trying to get autographs and turn on and flip them, that they've had to kind of limit their exposure to the players, which stinks, because it's really neat. You root for these guys, and getting an autograph or a wave or a shout out or something makes you feel like they're my guys. Like, I know them. You know what I mean? But I just think it's a lot more crowded. It's a lot more hyped. You got tickets that you got to get. A lot of people can't even get in there.
And they're selling tickets to a free event.
They're flipping tickets to a free event. It stinks, quite honestly. But I was telling my son, I found out, I wasn't aware, but like the 49ers, to go to that, it's $20 to go to training camp.
Yeah.
So the Browns are really doing right by the fans. Are doing the best they can. It's just it's so big now.
So, do you remember the one year we went and we were standing on, I guess it would be the west side of the field, and we're watching the running backs, and number 31. You know where I'm going with this?
I got a couple stories, but yeah, I do.
William Green takes a sip of the yellow Gatorade and throws it over to the side. And, I mentioned Uncle Scott earlier. He's the grounds crew supervisor for the Cleveland Browns, still there to this day. He would come over to us after, and he comes over. And I'm like, you think I should ask him? And I asked him, and sure enough, he walked over there, picked up the Gatorade bottle. I still had that water bottle, that Gatorade, under my bed at my mom's house. I have to get. I'm so mad I didn't bring it because you always gave me crap for it. I bet you drank it. I bet you drank it. You took a sip, didn't you? I never once took a sip of it, and I'm almost tempted after all these years to give it a little sip. Maybe it tastes a little something good. You know what I mean?
How was this? Yeah.
William Green, that was the funniest thing ever, though, because you used to always say, "You drink it." I know you did.
Yeah,
and you would never let me live it down.
I do remember that. We had some really good times at training camp. I mean, you know, to you going there, even with your daughter. I mean, you brought your daughter, talking to players, having players interact with you. That's when this whole Chef Zay thing really started to take off. In the beginning. Meeting some of the players. I remember you were there when Odell and Jarvis came over. My son was able to get their autographs. I know you were salty though, because I know you didn't get them both.
I was I was a little salty. I was salty, but that was the first event that we had that was just me and him, and it was the moment that it was like, wow, what a full circle moment you took me to all of my things, and out of all the great players that we've had Braylon, Couch. I'm trying to think of some other players. The Andre Davis, William Green, Josh Cribbs, Dennis Northcutt, the Dennis Northcutt, David Buster's thing that we used to always go to.
That was fun.
Like, you took me to all of those things, and to be able to give your son a moment that we used to do, and he get the best player, that was more than enough for me, because I still got Jarvis. You know what I mean? It's not like I came out of that empty-handed. But, man, I'll never forget that. They come right over he goes right to us, and I'm like, give me your ball. Hands him the ball. Odell signs it. Jarvis is signing my thing. And then I'm like, here. And then I try to get my thing signed, and Odell just goes, cheer. I'm like,
Hey, but to your credit, you really were. You were hyped for Ryan. I remember that.
That was awesome.
But then you got Phil. I don't know if that was the same one. You got Phil Dawson.
Yes,
Phil Dawson.
I did end up getting Phil Dawson. Was that same camp, or was it the next camp?
I think it might have been a different one.
So I've been to so many training camps, I can't even keep up with them anymore, because in 19, I went to 14 of the 16, and then the year after that, I went to, I want to say 10 of them.
Wow.
And then there was COVID. Oh, no, it was COVID, so they didn't have it. The year after that, was 10. And then last year, I kind of took a step back a little bit. And I've only been to one this year because they've limited the fans with all the renovations. Have you been down there yet?
I haven't, and we won't get down there.
So if I can get a hold of some extra tickets, we'll go down there. But it is completely different.
I heard that. Yes, I heard.
And it looks great though. I mean, it's so open. You know, all those houses right there. Even one of the houses that was right up by the gate, that's someone sold it and they've got that knocked down. And that whole back part is all grass.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and parking lot. So it looks good. But I guess let's transition in. You know, obviously we got a game before we get into the preseason game. Let's touch on last season real quick. A lot of great moments. You know, you've got the Greg Newsome interception on the Ravens to you know, ultimately put us in position to win. You've got the game where nobody thought we would win with the 49ers. There are countless games that you can point to last year. What's your favorite moment, memory, or game that you can think of, or is there multiple?
Well, unfortunately, you just hit on two of the three things. First of all, it was the Ravens, Week 10. Mm-hmm. You know, I was fortunate enough but unfortunate enough to be there in 2020, I believe it was, when Lamar Jackson suddenly caught a stomach flu, and me and my son were like, we got this, we are going to win, and then he came back after wiping his rear end and beat us. So to see them actually beat the Ravens was
at their house
was, oh my God, it was amazing. Like you said, Greg Newsome with the setup, and then Dustin Hopkins, which, going back to Andrew Berry, what a pickup that was, because you don't realize how great a field goal kicker is until you need one, and so far, knock on wood, he's been the man.
And speaking of field goal kickers, you used to give Phil Dawson the most crap every single week. Ding Dong Dawson is what you would call him.
Facts.
And he was the most reliable guy, and we begged for that. It's just so funny. Again, another full circle moment.
Yeah, he called him Phil the Foot. I said I had another F word for Dawson. I wasn't a big fan, but he was amazing. I mean, amazing. But it just seemed like you know, when you're there and you just need that big kick, 99% of the time you got it, but that 1%, I'm gonna call him out.
And it was very rare that it was the 1%.
It was very rare. Phil, you are a legend.
What do you think about Joe Flacco? What's your thoughts on that?
That was gonna be my next. So it was gonna be my top moments were the Ravens, then the 49ers, the improbable game where Hopkins again hits 4 field goals. But Joe Flacco, I think, was one of the most exciting things because when he was in Baltimore, we couldn't stand Joe Flacco. We hated Flacco.
We were his toilet tissue.
And typical Browns fans, when you're one of us, we're all in with you. We will bleed for you. We love the guy. I was really sad to see him go. We don't know exactly how that went down with numbers and what they were looking at, but I think last year, I'm going to hope last year was a fluke and we got the best out of Flacco and he doesn't go somewhere else and prove us wrong by letting him go.
You know, I was asked about this a couple of days ago, and someone said, what is the reasoning behind that? And I'm like, I think you know why. And he didn't know why because he thought it was different. But I told him it's like, you can't keep him on the team.
Not with Deshaun.
You can't. I mean,
not with Deshaun.
This stadium, we've seen it with Brian Hoyer and Johnny Manziel. And I honestly think it was the perfect storm. It was the perfect chip. It was the perfect opportunity for a guy like Joe Flacco. Number one, he had nothing to lose. Number two, he's a veteran in this league, and it's like, okay, yeah, you're throwing him in there halfway through the season, halfway through the year, but this is nothing that this guy has not been.
No.
We've seen him go
ice in his veins.
Yeah, like historic runs to win a Super Bowl, not just go to the Super Bowl, to actually win a Super Bowl. I think it's super unfortunate how it actually transpired because I think the locker room believed it. I think everyone believed it, including the fans, including Haslam, Barry. Everyone believed that when he said, we'll be somewhere special in 6 weeks. I think we all believed that. And he came out and it just, honestly, it wasn't that. But, man, you said, will he go somewhere else? He's in Indy right now. I just don't think the Storm is as good as Indy.
No.
But,
no.
You know, there is an opportunity because Anthony Richardson had the shoulder injury last year.
Correct.
And if he gets in, he could spark some magic.
He could.
But I don't think we'll see that version of Joe Flacco.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I think I don't want to call. I call it a fluke. I don't know if that's the right word for it. I think we got the best out of Joe Flacco we could with our team, and just because he goes somewhere else doesn't mean that's going to be reignited and whatnot. But you're right, Deshaun Watson. I think we all knew. I mean, I don't know what was in Deshaun Watson's head, but it couldn't have felt good that the fans were like, I mean, we embraced, we loved him. And Watson's got a little bit of hate. I mean, he has. Mm-hmm. He has.
You know, I think it was. I like to make the argument that I honestly think it was the best thing that could have happened to Deshaun Watson, for a couple reasons. Number one, he got to see with his own eyes a quarterback come in here and thrive with his team.
This is true.
With players that aren't even you know, you can't tell me you can't make this work. You got to see it firsthand, and you know, everyone said, well, maybe he didn't like him being there. There were clips of him and Joe on the sidelines chopping it and talking football.
Being a good teammate.
So it's like, and then on top of that, since everyone likes to talk about the money, he collected his check. You think he's mad that he got to watch Joe Flacco come out here and his team? He's a team guy. He's always been a team guy. Right. So I think it was the best situation for him to see that. And ultimately, to fuel a different fire that may not be there. Yeah. Because let's be honest, we talked about it a little bit earlier. We're getting paid so much money now. The only thing, if you care, do you care about your money or do you care about the legacy?
Yeah.
And then this is that season where how bad does Deshaun Watson want to be? You know, how bad does he want his name to, you know, it's never going to be cleared. But what do you want people to know you for? Are you going to create a legacy or are you going to live with the legacy that you already have? And I think seeing that, knowing that team that you got, they've done you have an owner that's going out doing everything for you. This is a make or break year, not for the organization, but for Deshaun Watson's whole entire career.
Agreed. And I think part of the sting too is Baker went off and he's a pretty darn good quarterback.
Yeah, he is.
He's a pretty good quarterback. Me personally, I mean, I know this is getting off topic, but I wanted to give him one more year. I wanted to give Baker one more year. So that's obviously not what they chose to do, and he's doing his thing and Deshaun's doing his thing. So someone like myself, you know, I'm watching the bottom of the screen when the Browns are on. I'm like, Baker Mayfield, 3 touchdowns, 350 yards. Deshaun's got, you know, 120 yards, and his shoulder, you can tell it's bobbing. I'm like, so I just need Deshaun Watson to be Deshaun Watson. Nothing on top of that. Just be him.
I always think about the whole Baker thing. Like, everyone's like, well, look at Baker now. We would have been in the Super Bowl by now. And Greg Williams, I don't know if you saw the comment Greg Williams had. He was on with 92 through the fan. And he's like, I fully believe with all my heart, if they would have kept me around, we would have won a Super Bowl with Baker. I wanted to jump through the radio hearing that because I think there was a group of fans that believed that. But I don't think we would have gotten that Baker that we seen. I think the Baker that we fractured, that whole relationship was fractured. The bridge was burned before you could even get off the bridge.
It was done.
And everything was sinking so fast. And I think the maturity, the ego, that was the only thing with Baker. It's like his ego was his biggest strength while also being his biggest weakness.
Yes.
Because it's what made him, he's an underdog guy all throughout his career. You have to have an ego.
Yep.
But if you can't control that ego, you don't know how to manage that ego, you can't be mature in other areas. You've seen how it unfolded. Like, I like to use the Jimmy Garoppolo as an example and the Alex Wright and that whole situation in San Francisco with Trey Lance. Jimmy Garoppolo, there wasn't a peep when they were like, oh, we're going to go with Trey Lance, and oh, we're going to trade Jimmy Garoppolo here, and then next thing you know, he's not traded, and now he's playing for you. It's like, if Baker would have just went about it a different way, I think we would have gotten that one more year from Baker.
You're right.
So ultimately, it is what it is. I think I'm a Baker fan now. It was bitter when he did leave because he was seeing those things. And,
I was mad.
It's like, bro, don't be like that.
Yeah.
Like, you know what it was here.
Yeah.
And a rare situation that you got yourself into, but he's come along, and you can clearly see that he's grown, just like Johnny Manziel. And I'm a Baker fan, so nothing but success to him.
Yeah, absolutely. He didn't end up. I mean, it's not like he went straight on to Tampa Bay. I mean, he had to stop in Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
You saw what he did there. Not a whole lot.
Nothing.
And
Got cut.
I mean, he's doing great things in Tampa Bay because, like you said, he's matured. He had a child. He's handled himself like a professional. And as you mentioned, that was so fractured in the receiver room. They kept downplaying it with the Browns. Odell, this and the other. You could see it.
Once Odell left, that was the end of that culture with Jarvis and everything. Because you seen it with Jarvis didn't talk to the media the rest of the year. Once Odell was gone, you didn't hear from Jarvis the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And then I'll always go back to that Pittsburgh game. If you go back and watch the highlights of that Pittsburgh game, they gave up on Baker.
Oh yeah.
Baker rushed for that first down and clinched the playoff. And I think it was who the heck was number 82 at the time, but players that you didn't even like. Who the heck is celebrating with this guy? There was no Myles Garrett, and he's right in front of Myles Garrett's face. And Myles Garrett's not. It's like, wow, it was bad in that locker room. So
sometimes it's an addition by subtraction.
Exactly. And obviously everyone's in the best situation now. So move on from Baker. Let's get into the season. What's your biggest expectation? Obviously the goal is Super Bowl, but Za'Darius was on record saying that they have a number one goal, and the number one goal is to win the division. So I ask you, what's your biggest expectation? And if the Browns make it to the AFC, or if the Browns win the North, but lose in the first round of the playoffs, is the season still a success knowing that their number one goal is to win the AFC North?
I would say that is a definite. It's a success. It's a successful season because we got the toughest division in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, when you look at Baltimore, Super Bowl contender, the Browns, they're getting there. Personally, I know this is an unpopular opinion. I don't think they're there yet. I haven't seen enough, especially with some of the injuries we have with Chubb coming in and whatnot. Cincinnati, I feel, a Super Bowl contender. So we need a lot of things to go right in order for us to get to that hump. If we were to win the division, to me that is huge because it's not just about this year. It sends notice to the league that we're here, mm-hmm. and the following year hopefully we are at that plateau and we're Super Bowl contenders.
And we haven't won since 86 or 89 or something like that.
I think it was 89.
So we're long overdue, and I'm on an AFC North roundtable with a bunch of guys now, and they're like, well, we've won the division 6 times in the past years, and I'm just sitting there. I'm like,
you can't say anything.
Can't say not a
Can't
dang
say
thing,
nothing.
man. So
Can't say nothing.
we definitely needed to win a division this year.
We do.
And I think it's nice. It's a breath of fresh air to see, number one, the players, how happy they are here, how much they want to be. When in our lifetime have we ever heard a players, coaches say, "Nah, I don't need all that money. I'm trying to go win in Cleveland." Like, Jordan Hicks is one of those guys. Zadarius stayed another year. Maurice Hurst picked up his options. Shelby stayed another year. David Njoku extended and embraces Cleveland as if he was born and raised here. JOK is literally not holding. I just made a video on this, and he liked my video. So, you know, they watch it. Shout out JOK. But JOK could very easily have the foot on this organization's throat by not being at training camp, by not practicing, holding out until he gets that contract, and he's not. It's crazy to think that we're in this predicament, and the next thing on that list is the title. We have to win the North.
Yeah, we have to win the North. We have to win the North. That's step one, and then everything after that is icing. I mean, on the cake. I think we have the ability to do it. I do. Going back to Deshaun, I think it's a huge. There's so much riding on Deshaun. Jerome Ford is not Nick Chubb, but Jerome Ford is a really good running back, and I think he can be a good fill until Chubb comes back, God willing that he does come back. We got receivers, which I'm sure we'll talk about,
yep.
but if Deshaun can play well, we could find ourselves at that plateau. But the North is certainly first and foremost.
So you definitely mentioned the receivers. We've got 8 on the roster right now, and I mean, 6 or 7 of those guys will make the team. I think 7 of them make the team or something like that. And 6 of them are clear cut already on the team. There's a spot that's available. Obviously, the bigger topic than that is the Brandon Ayuk situation, and I'm anxious to know what your thoughts are on that, because a few questions. One, what would you be willing to give up? Because I've seen a bunch of different trade scenarios. And 2, it's kind of a two-parter. If Amari Cooper were in the trade, is it an upgrade? And if he was to find a way to not use Amari Cooper, what would this offense look like with Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, and Brandon Ayuk? So, like, I guess the question is, what effect would Brandon Ayuk have on this team, in your opinion?
I'm not a fan of Ayuk. I was a fan of Ayuk about a week ago, and then it's gone south this whole last week, because I don't like it when things get messy with contracts and guys start talking and being vocal in the organization and all that stuff, and Ayuk has done that.
Yep.
You look at the numbers with Cooper and you look at the numbers with Ayuk, and I believe Cooper has 9 seasons to Ayuk's 4, and they're pretty comparable. But Ayuk has Kittle, Ayuk has Debo, which, I mean, that's a fantastic foundation. Yeah, we have Njoku, you know, we have Elijah Moore, we have, you know, Cedric, whatever. But I feel like Amari to Ayuk, I think Cooper's a better player personally.
I do too.
So it all boils down to age, and he's older. He's 4 years older. So I'd be content staying with what it is, because I think chemistry is huge.
Yep.
And when you have a guy who's already willing to kind of put himself before team, I don't want that guy. However, the other reason I kind of don't want him is because I feel like he's playing the Browns. He played New England. They were talking about Steelers a month or so back.
He wants to be there.
He wants to be there. So you know what? Go ahead, work something out. Take Freiermuth or take Pickens, weaken their offense. Take him in, and roll the chip and see where it may. I mean, I don't really want to.
You know, the biggest question with me is the fit. Yeah, Andrew Berry and Stefanski always talk in their press conference whenever they talk about this type of thing, and they've been very on record saying that they like the human element. They always address the human element. Obviously, they're going to take all of the analytics and information that they can gather, but they always make sure the human element feels right.
You have to.
And when you talk about trading for a guy like Brandon Ayuk, and you mention all of the distractions and the noise, if he really wanted to be here, he would be here, because we have a deal and set. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You turn down 32. You turn down top 5 money. You turn down in New England.
Yeah.
Okay, you want to go somewhere. You have an agenda.
Yep, you have an agenda.
What would the be like? You take out an Amari Cooper. Deshaun Watson came out in an interview a couple weeks ago before training camp started, and he's like, you guys, he's like, Amari Cooper seems like this quiet guy, and like he never really talks, but he's like, once he gets comfortable and he knows who you are, he's joking around and he's laughing around and he's just a great guy to be around. It's like, do you want to take that out? And you can plug him in with me, you, and the next Joe Schmo, and he's gonna still give you 1,000 yards.
Yep. For
a guy who's, he's younger and he's talented, but you see what it's coming with, and that's my biggest problem. But I think Andrew Berry and them, it's kind of like a cat and mouse game. I've heard something that's like, maybe Andrew Berry is playing this because they know he wants to go to New England, and they're hiking up the price in order, because someone said they don't think it's even in the realm of possibilities for them to trade Pickens, and I'm just like, how?
I'm with you on that. I don't think he's shown a whole lot. I was not excited, but I was nervous about Pickens when I saw him coming into the league, and I'm like, damn, Pittsburgh got him. This guy, I mean, he's a beast.
I wanted him so bad.
So did I, because I like that toughness and that chippiness. But he hasn't really done all that. So go ahead, do your thing. I just think if we were going to make that trade, I don't want Amari Cooper in on it. And I don't want any of the big names. I don't want Greg Newsome or any of those guys. I know you're probably big on Cedric Tillman. I think he's got a potentially has a good future. But potentially, you want to take Cedric Tillman and like a second or third round pick? Let's make that, but I know that's not on the table.
They've been throwing Wyatt Teller in a second round a lot. I'm so iffy on the Wyatt Teller situation. I've suggested my sleeper. Their backup quarterbacks are Josh Dobbs and Brandon Allen. We have 4 quarterbacks on the roster.
Yeah,
somebody's not gonna make it. Somebody's gonna end up on the practice squad or being traded. This could be their out. Well, no, this is it. You would think, right? I think he's the easier one that could slip through the cracks and you can get him on the practice squad.
True.
But if you cut Tyler Huntley, someone's picking him up regardless, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm looking at it like this could be your out to potentially pair up Huntley with maybe, like, would you be content for the first round pick in the 2025 draft, Brandon Ayuk? Would you be content giving up a first round pick and maybe a Huntley for Ayuk? I would lean towards that.
I would lean towards that.
Why not? I'm okay with doing that.
Yeah.
And you get rid of, but that's more than likely not going to happen. Obviously, that's just me spitballing and thinking of an idea. But I would love for them to keep everybody together. I was team running back the second we got our butts whooped against the Texans, and it seems as if everyone's on board with the team running back. So I guess I'm not going to think too much about it.
I think it's a non-issue. I think he's going to end up in Pittsburgh. They'll figure it out, and we'll see him twice a year, and hopefully we got some good defensive backs. Hopefully we'll lock him down.
We got a bigger problem on our hand, and that's JOK. Like, get that man under contract for the next 4 or 5 years because we cannot afford to lose that guy. And I think that'll come. I think there has to be some kind of conversation because for the fact JOK's not holding out, I think they are just waiting for the dominoes to fall, and then he'll get his contract. And they already know he's staying, so shout out to JOK for that, man.
Oh, I know.
You don't get... I've talked about the luxuries of this team, man. You got a guy like... we haven't even talked about Mike Vrabel. I am the biggest Mike Vrabel fan in the world.
Yeah.
And every time I see one of his clips, I'm ready, like you always used to say, run through a wall. I'm ready to do it right now talking about him.
Yeah. That might have been the biggest offseason move of Andrew Berry.
I say it all the time because when have we ever had luxuries? This is a 3-time Super Bowl player winning champion. This is a Coach of the Year winner. This is the AFC North or AFC East division champion for a couple years. They've been to the AFC Championship game. They've been to places that we're trying to go to. And you're telling me you're getting him pennies on the dollar as a consultant? Like,
so let me ask you this. What do you think there's an end game to that?
I think there's definitely a plan in place. I think, number one, he's from here. So why not go be with a team that I used to root for? He talked about biting the dog bones and being down at the Muni. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he did.
So there's ties there. Obviously, everyone's talking about as soon as Ryan Day gets canned, that's his job to take. But I think he's just waiting for the right position. I think he mentioned that he had a couple interviews, and unfortunately they went the other route. I think it puts a good chip on his shoulder. He gets to, bulk his resume, take some time off. He said there's no role for him during game day, so he's basically going to be a spectator when it's all said and done. But for you to be able to have him in training camp, which is ultimately one of the most important, that when you talk about techniques and implementing new things into the system, he's so hands-on with these guys. And
you see him working with Njoku?
That's exactly where I was going. Yeah. You want to talk about trying to propel yourself into that top 3 conversation? Increasing your blocking is going to do that. And he's with them every day. Yesterday I got a glimpse of him talking to Watson. So for him to be in that locker room, it's a luxury. Yeah. And we're talking about Brandon, we don't have these luxuries.
Yeah,
it's weird being there.
See, I was wondering if they brought him in because Jim Schwartz is potentially a head coach candidate because of the way he's run that defense.
Don't go there.
And it was a we'll call it a lightweight promise that, hey, if that happens, that's your spot. But I don't know that he wants to be a defensive coordinator.
I was gonna say he said he didn't when I think it was when he first got here in that presser. He's like, I don't want to be a head coach anymore. I've done it and da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
So it's like, again, another luxury. I'm sure someone probably called him and was like, hey, we got a head coaching job for you. And he's probably like, I got the number 1 defense in the league.
Yeah,
We're good.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll jump into, before we end with the preseason stuff, let's do some a hot take. Give me your hottest take for this season, or something that you wouldn't normally expect, or off the wall.
Well, this one doesn't involve the Browns. It involves the Steelers. And my hot take is we should have gotten Justin. We should have grabbed Justin Fields.
Oh my God! I cannot believe you went there.
We should have signed Justin Fields.
You're
not a Justin Fields fan?
No, because I like Justin Fields. I think Russell Wilson and Justin Fields ending up in Pittsburgh is, quite frankly, the best situation for both of those players, and it makes me so disgusted that, because I didn't want them to get either one.
I know.
And they got both.
I know. Well, I work with some Steelers fans, so we ride each other. We pause. And when they got Russell Wilson, I'm like, okay, I know, future Hall of Fame, whatever, but he hasn't done much in a while. But then when they got Fields, I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
I'm like, that was a Steeler move, and he looks good.
He looks good
in camp. I know we have his number, but I'm telling you, man, the Browns fans cannot stand me because I'm a guy that, we grew up hating the Steelers. Heaven rarely walked in Ant's house with talking about Ray Lewis or Troy Polamalu. You could not do that. That was a no-no. So I grew up in that. And being on social media and seeing all of these Steelers fans and Ravens fans and Bengals fans, shout out to the ones that rock with the kid, it gives me a newfound, it gives me a different perspective.
Yeah.
But I've never been afraid to give credit where credit is due.
No.
And the Pittsburgh Steelers organization has been top tier for as long as I've been alive. And just when you think they're getting ready to fall off, they don't. If anybody can fix these guys, I would imagine it's probably the Pittsburgh Steelers organization. And I don't want no parts of these guys.
Well, that's the thing. When guys leave Pittsburgh, guys think they can do better in other places. That usually doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. When they leave, it's like writing their own ticket right to the tombstone of the NFL because they don't produce after that. And I've gone to games in Pittsburgh with friends that were Steelers fans. I wore my colors, my Browns colors, got heckled or whatever. But I'm like, God dang it! These guys always seem to regroup, and they've got a good foundation, and they proved it again with Justin Fields. For the Browns, I think I hate to say it, but I think you're gonna see Jameis Winston this year. I'm not saying a lot, but I think you're gonna see him, and I'm hoping he produces because I see Deshaun Watson potentially getting hurt. I hope it's not because of his play.
Mm-hmm.
Because if that's it, then he's got to go.
Don't worry, guys. We'll see Winston week 17 against Jeff Driscoll, when the playoffs are live.
I hope you're right.
North. On my podcast, Honor the Land with Max, we talked about the expectation and all of this thing, and would there be a player, what's the thing you're looking forward to, and what's the thing that's going to take a step back? And I referred to Deshaun Watson and his presser where he talked about not entertaining any of the negativity and any of that stuff. And I think it stands here where it's like the Browns took a step back last year. and just because our record said it didn't, we played with a depleted roster. We played without our $230 million quarterback. We played without our franchise running back. We played without a lot of these guys that have a huge impact on this team. And if you want to talk about winning the AFC North and potentially making a Super Bowl run, there's no margin for error in terms of taking steps back. And I think if Deshaun Watson takes a step back, I mean, there's not many more steps for him to take back. We will see Winston. Like, I don't think they're never going to be hesitant. I think we'll see. No, as I'm sitting here thinking about it, they can't afford to go away from Deshaun Watson. They're going to ride it through unless he's injured, no matter how good or how bad he looks, unless he looks so bad to where our defense is winning us the games. And then I think at that point you'll see one of those, oh, Brian Hoyer's injured, we have to take him out and put in Johnny Manziel.
Well, that's almost like what happened with Baker. It was like I know he was injured and whatnot, but it's almost like, you know what, we're going to let him do his thing. We're going to give him this year because he will not be here next year. So we're going to give him the whole year regardless, and we'll see where it takes us. But there's some interesting positions on this team that we have to see what they do. I know you had mentioned on one of your videos, I believe, the whole thing with, I think it was you that mentioned with Conklin coming back, what are they going to do?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, that's an interesting one because Jedrick Wills, I mean, I am not all in on him at all. If I could be all out on him, I would be. So move people around, do whatever you got to do. I'm going to keep an eye on him. Cedric Tillman, like I said before, I think he's got the potential to be a good receiver, and who better learn from than Amari Cooper?
Mm-hmm.
So those are some key things I think to watch.
So we win. I guess that was kind of that. So I guess we're just about done. Let's talk some preseason before we get out of here. Make sure you guys are like and subscribe. Shout out to everybody tuning into the 24-hour stream. Go to CrocPotCLE.com to check out the goals that we have for the first few weeks. We're not just trying to go to every home game. We're trying to go to every game possible. So until these videos can fund everything that we need to do, all the help, all the comments, all the likes, shares, it goes a long way. But Green Bay's in town, and they're playing their starters for about 10 snaps. So we'll see some Jordan Love. We'll see their starters on offense and defense. We won't see Deshaun Watson. I imagine we won't see Myles Garrett. Probably won't see some Denzel Ward. We'll see some starters, but we won't see a lot of them. What are you most excited for? Who are you most tuned into this preseason? I guess who's your best standout player for this preseason to keep an eye out for?
It's going to be Maurice Hall.
Okay.
It's going to be Maurice Hall.
Maurice Hall or Mike Hall?
Mike Hall. Maurice's brother, Mike.
Maurice's brother. Maurice Hurst. Shout out Maurice Hurst.
It's gonna be Mike Hall. I'm really curious to see. I mean, we got to see what he did at Ohio State. Now, I mean, you got people talking about you in the same breath as Aaron Donald. So I'd like to see what he does.
I'm pumped for Mike Hall, just for the simple fact it started with the rumbles of how he looks explosive off the ball and everything. Yeah. And then it trickled into Zadarius Smith saying Aaron Donald and his name in the same sentence. And I'm like, am I reading this right? This is high praise from a veteran.
Yeah, they don't do that.
Who's been in the
Veterans
league.
Don't do that.
And then you go to camp yesterday and you see him going head-to-head with Myles Garrett and basically losing by a seventh of a second and getting off the ball. There is something there with Mike Hall, and I am all in on him. I think the guy he's my guy on the defense that I'll be watching, and Cedric Tillman. I was high on Emerson, was right about him. I was high on Grant Delpit, right about him. I am never been more high on a receiver, I think, than Cedric Tillman, and it stems from what I seen last year. We always, when you talk about the AFC North, there's a certain breed of players that fit in the AFC North. JOK is one of them. Ray Lewis's of the world, the Ed Reeves, the Troy Polamalu's, Ike Taylor's, Terrell Suggs, the list can go on. When Cedric Tillman laid that block down on the Pittsburgh Steelers on a bootleg, I'm like, oh, this dude. And then he went over. I'm like,
that's what I want.
We've never had this. We've never, ever had this. And then you see it translate into this year where it comes to his route running looks like it's getting a little better. That double move he put on Rodney McLeod where he split Denzel Ward and McLeod, that was a work of art. You would have thought it was like Odell or something. And he's tall. We've never had a 6'4"
No, he's tall,
guy,
yeah.
you know what I mean, that
Yeah.
can go up and throw. We always say, just go throw it up. Well, yeah, we're going to throw it up to Corey Coleman, Elijah Moore,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
all these short guys
You're right.
that ain't 6'4".
Yeah.
It's a mismatch nightmare. So definitely those are two of the players that I'm locked into. You know, it's hard to get super hyped for preseason because we're
Of
not going to
course.
see many and it feels like they're gearing towards completely eliminating the preseason, which is why I think you see a lot more of these joint practices, and that's
Yes.
where they go hard at.
Yep.
And then, you know, preseason is what it is. But let's last thing, let's you know, we got to do record prediction. That's the hot thing. We have the hardest schedule in the year of the year out of all the teams. They have our over under at, I saw one at 8.5, and I think I seen one at 9.5. It's probably 9.5. What's your record prediction? And are you over or under?
We're going 12-6.
Oh, okay. 12-6 or 12-5.
12-5.
12-6 means we lost in the playoffs.
Well, that's still possible.
That's still possible. That's fine. 12 is a great number, honestly.
It is. It would be huge. But that's got so that's got. I got them sweeping the Steelers, splitting with Baltimore, splitting with Cincinnati. Dallas is going to be. I mean, I thought I was really all in that they were going to win. They were going to win that game. Now I'm kind of like, you know what? They're kind of balanced. Those teams are kind of balanced. So I think that's going to be a good game. But I got them losing that game. I got them losing to the Chiefs. But I think the Chiefs could be an upset. I think they could beat the Chiefs.
You know, are the Chiefs here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
But
Miles,
it's prime times of the season where they're going to need that.
You know, like Myles Garrett said, he doesn't care. We're home. We went 8-1 at home last year.
True enough.
Now obviously there's got to be some regression there. When I looked at that, I'm like 8-1. Holy crap, we were dominant. Like, that's not just being good. We were dominant at home. And if they go in with that mindset, man, we're not losing at home again. I mean, every year we've broken some 90 or 20 plus year record in the bad terms.
Yeah.
We ain't won a home opener playoff game.
I know.
And mistakenly, right? Since before the merger.
It's been a minute.
So I think this is like one of the last standing records where it comes to that. I know, or we won last year, but that was away.
That was away,
year.
right? That was
because they were talking about the first back-to-back games.
Right? Was that Cincinnati?
No, Cincinnati was home last year. Also, we beat that record. Okay, so cancel that. No, that was home. No, wait, was that week 1 or week 2? That was week 1. In the rain.
Remember.
Yeah, we opened up with the Bengals last year.
You looking it up?
That's crazy because, so maybe the record that I'm thinking of is the back-to-back. We haven't won back-to-back games to open the season, and that was what we were trying to break.
That could be it. It's like you said, we're always breaking a record, some stupid record.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, Tom Brady's going to be in the building, 4:25 primetime game. The Muni's probably going to open up at the crack of dawn. People are going to be rowdy. It's going to be...
And it's his birthday.
Who?
It's Ryan's birthday that day.
Oh, it's your birthday. Oh, wow. Are you going down?
He's going to be at school.
I'll be at school.
Yeah, you're going to be at school. I'll see you downtown. First week of school, you're already playing hooky. But yeah, it's going to be wild down there for sure. So, I don't know. I think about that, what I asked you earlier, and if we win the division, 12 is definitely, I think, can win the division. I think the Ravens also, they'll probably win more than 11 games, 10, 11 games.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, I'm so disrespected by all of these Bengals talks, and I get it. I think Joe Burrow's one of the best quarterbacks in the league, top 3, top 4 in my opinion. I think he ultimately could be the best when it's all, not the best, you got Patrick Mahomes, but he has the it. He has the Tom Brady, you know what I mean? He's
got that swagger. I mean, just
yeah,
cool as a cucumber.
And then you mix that with the fact that they have the easiest schedule in the division. My first record prediction, which I'll have my official record prediction later in the day. Stay tuned for that. I see could it be possible if the Browns, Bengals, and Ravens all win 11 games next year?
It's possible.
And then you're talking about seeding and how does this work and who's left out. I just don't see how the Browns lose more than 4 games, with it being the hardest schedule. If we are who we say we are, we should be winning these games, especially the ones at home.
I agree.
So
I agree.
Well, I don't know if I have anything else left for you. Anything else you want to go down? Anything else you want to reminisce about? You want to get off your chest, talk? I'll give you the floor now and let you have it.
No, I mean, I'm proud of you, man. Like you made this whole thing happen. I mean, it's one thing to talk about a dream or whatever, to actually make it come true. It's pretty amazing. I mean, the people that follow you and the support you get. I mean, it's pretty inspiring. I'll be honest. I'm like, I don't know. It's a lot of work. I could never do that. And I mean, you guys actually have to see this RV to believe it. It's pretty awesome.
And it's just weird how everything, they always say there's a purpose in your life and you have a calling and all of these things. And I've gone through so many journeys to get to this point. But if you start from the very beginning, it all stems from you and Ann and Scott and being over there every Sunday. And if we weren't there, we were down at downtown. We weren't in the Muni because I was, you were being responsible and keeping me away from that. But we were down at the port throwing the footballs right before the game, and we'd get there early and we'd try to mingle and do all of these things. And then for that to know, since I've loved it since being a kid, to go through massage therapy school, to going off to college, to experiencing it a year, to going to social media school, Ohio Media School, and doing that, to being a Twitch streamer, to going through all of these different avenues and being like, yeah, this is it. I thought being a massage therapist was going to be my calling because I love to help people.
Yeah.
But it comes to find out that this is it, and it's still helping people because I bring a different aspect, and to see all of the fans say that, man, you're just like me, and it's like I found the calling, and to start with you and for you to mold me into being the fan that I am, all the credit goes to you and Ann. So it's crazy.
It is. Well, I will say this too. I mean, thinking back to us going to games, now I could never say I could see in the future, I knew you'd be doing something like this, but I remember being at games and you would say, I mean, you were little, Xavier, you were little, and you would say, watch the cornerback. They're gonna do this. Look at this. Look at that. And I'm much older, and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. And sure enough, that's exactly the route they would run. I'm like, I actually thought you were gonna be a head coach, like at least with high school or something. I swear to God, I did. And obviously, you're doing your thing in a different way, and you're very good at it. And people love watching.
Well, I definitely appreciate it. I'm trying to get emotional because it's just crazy. It's full circle moment. Like I've cried a couple times just thinking about it. I wish Ann could be here to see it.
Yeah.
But
Ann was one of the best people that I ever had come into my life, and it's my mother-in-law, and she would. I'm sure he's talked about it before. She would bang a pan, spray painted orange pan, anytime the Browns scored. And I remember when I met my wife and came by for a Browns game. I mean, I'm not used to my mother was a Browns fan, but she wasn't like a crazy Browns fan. And Ann she was out there banging that pan. She would call me at the house to ask me what I thought about the Browns. And sadly we lost her a few years ago, but I know if she's got anything to say about it, the Browns will be in the Super Bowl one day, and she'll be cheering and banging that pan.
I have one memory other than it's weird, your son's age and a little bit younger all have experienced more success as a fan than I have. The only memories that I have are all travesties. I was 7 years old when I was sitting in her house, and me, I used to love boxes and Tupperware things because I was so small. So I just remember sitting right next to where that air conditioner, or right in where the air conditioner would be in front of that window, crying because we lost to the Steelers. Those are the type of memories, and I've mentioned it to him before. I really want to rejuvenate it. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I have a couple ideas, but it's just a matter of getting the framework down and making them. I want to rejuvenate that and call it the Ant Pan and bring it back. And can you just imagine being at the Muni and they score and there's a bunch of people banging a pan.
Oh my God.
It would just
take your breath away.
It would be incredible. What the heck is that noise? You'd be like, what are they talking about? He's banging a pan. We didn't score many touchdowns when we were growing up. There was a lot of Phil Dawson field goals, but we lived next to a Steeler fan, and we made sure to let him know You know that the Browns scored, and it was just electric. And every time they would score, she would always give me the better pan. We had 2 pans.
Yeah.
One of them was this like crappy pan that she beat the dog.
Yeah.
Imagine a pan with a flat surface. It was literally a bowl because of how much she beat it. And she would always take the crap pan and give me the one that was louder and special. And we would get up, and she'd be first, and I'd be right there banging our pan. And the best part that I loved with it was when she was mad. You would know she'd be mad because she'd pick up her pan and she'd storm over to the door, and then she'd hit it and she'd throw her pan, she'd throw it over. And it's like it should have been a touchdown or something. It's just I just vividly remember that.
She knew football too.
Mm-hmm.
She knew football. And fun fact, she was from PA.
I was gonna say that.
So credit to her for not sticking with the black and pea
yellow,
colored
yeah.
yellow. No offense to the Steelers fans, but coming to the good side and being a Browns.
Because usually it's Steelers fans living in Cleveland.
Yeah.
And not the other way around.
Not the other
she
way
was
around.
that.
Yep.
So it's definitely a major shout out to Ann. And I can't thank you enough for coming on. It's
Absolutely,
been a blast.
man.
I've been waiting on this interview for so long. So I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed it. Any last words?
Go Browns.
Go Browns. That's it. I appreciate everybody. Rewind. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. We're still live doing a 24-hour stream, so stick around. We'll have some special guests later. Stay tuned. Former players, maybe a potential Hall of Famer. Just saying. And I'll catch y'all on the next one, all right? Peace.